By the time I saw him, he was already in my lane. Not standing in the middle of it, not waving his arms like a movie scene, just there on the shoulder, half turned toward the road, watching my headlights crawl closer. Out here, on that silent stretch of highway, even a still figure can feel like it's blocking your way. It was one of those nights when the dark feels heavier than usual. The highway ran straight for miles with barely a curve, and the sky above was almost cloudless, just a faint smear of stars and a thin slice of moon. My phone had been sitting on one bar of service for so long, it might as well have given up. I hadn't seen another pair of headlights in 20 minutes. I wasn't exhausted, but my mind had slipped into that rhythm long-distance drivers know, engine humming, tires whispering on the asphalt, the world shrinking down to white lines and whatever the high beams could reach. No radio, no podcasts, just the quiet that starts to feel like company all by itself. I've always told myself I like that kind of drive, the open road and nobody to answer to. But there's a point where the silence stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling like it's asking you questions. Then he lifted his arm and waved. Not frantic, not running into the lane. Just a slow, deliberate motion from the edge of the shoulder, like he'd been waiting for the right moment to be seen. His clothes looked ordinary from what I could make out. A jacket, dark jeans, shoes that were dusty but not destroyed. He wasn't swaying or stumbling. His posture was straight. Nothing about him screamed danger. Out here, hitchhikers weren't that unusual. So I did the thing I was raised to do. I slowed down. Gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled onto the shoulder a few yards ahead of him. I had just enough time for a small voice in my head to say, "You could still keep going," before my better habits overruled it. He opened the passenger door and climbed in without hesitation, like this was the most natural thing in the world. "Thanks," he said, settling into the seat and closing the door with a soft click. Didn't think anyone would actually stop. His voice was calm but flat, like each word had to be pulled up from somewhere far away and placed carefully in order. "No problem," I replied, shifting back onto the pavement. "Where you headed?" He kept his eyes on the road ahead instead of me. "Just down the road," he said. "Anywhere is fine. Just keep going straight. No town name, no landmark, no mile marker, just straight." That should have been my first red flag. We drove in silence for a minute or two. The darkness closed back in around the truck, the trees on both sides leaning toward us as if they'd grown up around the highway and never gotten used to letting anyone pass. The engine's low rumble and the sound of the tires against the pavement filled the cab. Then, out of nowhere, he asked, "Do you stop often?" I glanced over. His profile was quiet, unreadable. "Stop?" I repeated. "Not really, unless I need gas or coffee." He nodded slowly, still staring straight ahead. "You should stop tonight." A chill crawled up my arms before my brain could come up with a joke. "Stop for what?" I asked, keeping my voice even. "There's a place coming up," he said. "Nice little clearing off the road. Trees are tall, real quiet. Perfect for stretching your legs." I tightened my grip on the wheel, just a little. The highway ahead looked the same as it had for miles. No exit signs, no breaks in the tree line. "I'm good," I said. "I'll stop when I hit a town." For the first time since he got in, he turned his head and looked at me. His expression was normal. That was the problem. It wasn't annoyed or pleading or desperate, just bland, neutral, like he was trying on an idea to see how it fit. "But why wait for a town?" he asked. "Towns are loud, busy, people watching. You don't want people watching." "I'm fine with people watching," I said. "Kind of prefer it." He didn't smile, didn't even huff a laugh. "Not everyone prefers it," he murmured. The air in the cab felt thinner suddenly, as if someone had turned down the oxygen. I let the silence sit for a while. The road narrowed slightly and the trees on either side grew denser, branches knitting together above us. The sky vanished in patches. It felt like driving through a tunnel someone had carved out of the forest with a dull knife. The headlights bounced off the reflective paint on the center line, and each dash felt a little too bright, a little too sharp. "You know," he said after a bit, his tone almost musing, "most drivers stop." Do they? I kept my eyes on the highway. Right around here, he said. Why's that? They just do. He leaned forward slightly, squinting through the windshield like he was searching the tree line for something only he knew how to spot. There's a turnoff up ahead, he said. Not marked on the map. Good place to pull over. I didn't respond. I let my foot sink a little heavier on the gas, not enough to be obvious, just enough that I could feel the engine respond and the hum under the floor change. No need to rush, he murmured. We're already close. I took a slow breath. Look, man, I said, keeping my tone polite but firm. I'm happy to give you a ride. I'll drop you wherever you want in the next town, but I'm not stopping in the middle of nowhere. He looked at me again, this time longer. You really don't want to stop? He asked. No, I said plainly. We stared at each other for a second. Then he blinked once, twice, like he was adjusting to an unexpected answer. Shame, he whispered. The word hung in the air. For 5 full seconds after that, neither of us spoke. Those 5 seconds were some of the worst I've ever felt, because my imagination rushed in to fill the space. Every possible version of what he might have planned played out in quick flashes in my head. None of them ended at a gas station with me telling this story. The road curved gently, and as we came around the bend, a faint glow appeared through the trees. A sign, washed in tired neon, grew out of the darkness, a gas station logo, and a promise of fuel and cheap coffee. The puddles in the lot reflected the lights in broken streaks, like someone had smeared the glow across the concrete. It felt like someone had flipped a switch on the whole night. I steered toward the exit without asking. The closer we got, the more real everything felt again. Bright lights, concrete, pumps, a building, cameras, people maybe, any people. I pulled in fast, maybe a little faster than necessary, and rolled to a stop right under the brightest set of lights. The fluorescent glare spilled over the hood, the windshield, the side mirrors. There was nowhere for shadows to cling. I put the car in park. All right, I said, forcing my voice to sound casual. This is me. You can hop out here. He didn't move right away. He looked at the station building, at the empty parking spaces, then at me. This wasn't where you were supposed to stop, he said quietly. I know, I replied, but this is where I'm stopping. We held each other's gaze for a beat. Then he opened the door slowly and stepped out. The dome light above us blinked on for a second, washing his features in pale yellow. He looked smaller standing outside, somehow less solid once he was back under the real world's lighting. He leaned down before closing the door, meeting my eyes one last time. You shouldn't pick people up anymore, he said. Not out here. There wasn't any anger in it, no threat, just a flat statement, like a suggestion from someone who had already seen the outcome I'd avoided. Then he closed the door, turned, and walked away. Not toward the store, not toward the road. He moved past the last pump, into the gap where the light didn't quite reach, and kept going into the darkness beyond the edge of the lot. Within a few seconds, he was gone, swallowed by the night like he'd known exactly where to step to disappear. I sat there with the engine idling, my hands locked around the wheel. Part of me wanted to call out, ask him who he was, what he meant, what would have happened if I'd taken that turnoff he seemed so sure about. Another part of me, the part that had tightened my chest the moment he mentioned a nice little clearing, knew that more information wouldn't help me sleep any better. Instead, I killed the engine, stepped out under the harsh lights, and walked into the station. The fluorescent hum, the smell of burnt coffee, the sight of a bored cashier behind a counter. It all felt exaggeratedly normal, like someone had overcorrected after a near miss. My hands shook a little as I filled a styrofoam cup and added sugar I didn't really need. You all right, man? The cashier asked when I paid. Long drive, I said. Just needed a stop. He nodded like that explained everything. Behind him, a small TV mounted in the corner played a muted news segment. Cars, crowds, daylight. It might as well have been footage from another planet. Back on the road, Miles later, the whole encounter started to feel like something my brain had inflated out of a simple ride. Just a guy, just a weird conversation, just a late-night hitchhiker who didn't like gas stations. I even tried to talk myself into that version of it, out loud, window cracked to let in the cold air. But every time I reached the part where he told me most drivers stop and we're already close, something in me tightened again. A few days later, out of curiosity, I pulled up a map, zoomed in on that stretch of highway, and looked for anything: a dirt road, an access lane, a marked turnout that might have been the place he wanted me to see. There was nothing, just a straight gray line with green on both sides. No name, no symbol, no sign that the road ever opened up to anything else. There was no crime to report. Nothing technically happened. I dropped someone off at a gas station, and he walked away. That's all it would sound like on paper. And yet. Now, whenever I'm on that stretch of highway, I keep my doors locked. I don't pull over for shadows on the shoulder. I don't slow down for vague waves from the edge of the dark. If I see someone walking with their thumb out, I note the mile marker and call it in from somewhere bright. Because that night taught me something simple that I hadn't needed to say out loud before. Some people on the side of the road want a ride. Some people want you to follow their directions. And some people just want you to stop in the kind of place where no one else is watching. I don't know which kind of hitchhiker he really was. Maybe he was what he looked like. A stranger with bad ideas and worse timing. Maybe he was something else entirely. I just know that whatever was waiting just down the road wasn't meant for me, and I don't plan on finding out what I missed. If you want more stories from out here, you can subscribe. And thank you for giving me the chance to tell you another one.